31, 1994, 22-year-old Karen Lynn Stiles went for a run in Pisgah National Park near Asheville, North Carolina, and has not been seen since. Her body was found by a deer hunter several days later, still duct-taped to a tiny tree. Karen Stiles gave birth to their only child, Karen Lynn Stiles, on July 28, 1972, after she and James Thad Stiles had been married for 14 years. Candler, North Carolina was home to the Stiles family. Karen made her mother and father's lives complete. Thad used to put her in her car seat and watch the San Francisco 49ers on TV when she was about 9 months old. Karen, then 7 years old, told her dad, Thad, after watching Joe Montana's first game with the 49ers in 1979, that he's going to be a good quarterback. Karen was a lovely, thoughtful, and smart young lady who cared very much for her parents. She completed her high school education at Enka in 1990, and then went on to Western Carolina University in Cullowhee to earn a degree in therapeutic recreation in 1994. Karen was a top student and active member of many extracurricular groups during her time at the high school. She participated in both track and the yearbook. She held down 3 jobs while in college and still managed to graduate with honors. During the summer of 1991, Karen worked at a Girl Scouts camp and earned her credentials in ropes courses and rafting the Nantahala River. Karen got a job working with girls after she graduated from college at a South Carolina state-run wilderness camp for boys. She had been brought on board to assist in the creation of the software. Karen was thrilled to learn that she would be on 7 days on and off 7 days, living in a platform tent with a sleeping bag, as her mother put it. After completing a 12-week internship at a wilderness camp in Montana on July 31, 1994, Karen went back to Candler in early August. During the day, she could be found at her part-time job at Morris's in the Asheville Mall. Karen, age 22, and her friend Jennifer Olive frequented Pisgah National Forest for outdoor activities like biking and jogging because of Karen's fondness for nature. She was physically stunning. Karen had a 2 p.m. shift on October 31, 1994, but she got up early to go for a run. Jennifer often joins Karen when she goes for a bike ride or a run, but she couldn't make it that morning. Karen got dressed in a t-shirt, some shorts, and her sneakers for a run. Then she got into her white 4-door Plymouth Reliant and headed to a U.S. Forest Service-owned trail in the Bent Creek section of Pisgah National Forest. Her parents lost all hope of ever seeing her again. Later that night, when Karen still hadn't returned, Thad and Catherine contacted the authorities to report her missing. Karen's Plymouth Reliant, along with her keys and wallet, was discovered the next day in a parking lot near the beginning of the Hard Times Loop Trail. At 10 o'clock that night, over 60 people were still combing the park for the missing jogger. With temperatures dropping into the 20s that night, they were most concerned about Karen becoming hypothermic. Karen's key to the car door, which she carried with her during her run, was discovered in the dirt about 200 yards from her vehicle the following day. Teams using search dogs located hot spots indicating Karen's scent in the areas she was last seen, but the trails eventually fizzled out. Scuba divers looked in the area of Lake Powhatan near the dam, but they turned up nothing. The missing jogger was the subject of an extensive search effort by the authorities. Karen's parents put up missing person flyers with her photo and description all over town, but no one had seen her or heard from her. In their investigation, police concluded that she had been kidnapped and removed from Pisgah National Forest. On the morning of November 13, 1994, at approximately 10:30 a.m., Wildlife Officer Tim Sisk discovered a bloody T-shirt and contacted federal authorities, who refused to comment. The search for Karen would end in a grisly way, though it is not known if her body was ever positively identified. On Friday, November 25, 1994, at about 1:30 p.m., a deer hunter discovered Karen's partially clothed remains down a steep embankment off a dirt service road about a mile from her car. A small tree still had duct tape attached to her. The area had already been searched by teams, leading some to speculate that Karen's body may have been moved there after the fact. A search for her was unsuccessful, however, because of the rugged, overgrown landscape. The hunter for the deer had been within about 100 feet of the body earlier and had missed it. The dental records allowed the body of Karen to be identified at the medical examiner's office in Chapel Hill, North Carolina. The autopsy revealed that she was shot once in the head. The medical examiner was unable to determine whether or not she had been sexually assaulted due to her advanced state of decomposition. The loss of their only child devastated Karen's parents, but they never gave up hope that she would be found alive. Richard Allen Jackson, 25, was taken into custody by the police on Tuesday, December 20, 1994. He was later charged with first-degree murder, first-degree rape, and first-degree kidnapping. Although the circumstances surrounding Jackson's arrest have never been disclosed, it has been reported that he admitted to killing Karen when questioned. Jackson arrived in the Bent Creek area at around 8 a.m. on the day of Karen's murder. It turns out he's been frequenting the place for weeks. Jackson saw Karen getting out of her car and stretching before her run while he was sitting in his father's station wagon reading pornographic magazines. Jackson snatched a gun and a roll of duct tape from his car and followed Karen down the trail, eventually confronting her while armed. The realizing Karen begged Jackson to take her car and money but not hurt her. Instead of continuing along the path, Jackson veered off into the woods and led her there. When he was done, he duct-taped Karen to a tree and taped her mouth shut. Jackson exposed her by removing her underwear and briefs and sexually assaulted her. Then he turned his back on her, picked up a sleazy magazine, and masturbated in her presence. Moreover, it was reported that he repeatedly shocked her with a stun gun. Karen eventually freed her mouth from the duct tape and began to scream. Jackson ended her life with a single shot to the head. According to the police investigation, Jackson did not know Karen and did not stalk her before her death. Jackson had a wife and 2 young children. J.D. Jackson Jr. and his wife, Sally Jackson, fostered a young boy for a while before formally adopting him when he was 6 years old. Famous real estate agent J.D. Jackson claimed his upbringing in a loving home helped shape his moral character. Jackson left for good not long after turning 18 and graduating from Asheville High. He eventually tied the knot with Jerry Donna King, and the 2 of them started a family. In June of 1993, J.D. Jackson, who had previously worked as a dishwasher there, purchased Mountain View Restaurant. Others said he was a nice guy who always spoke kindly of his wife and kids. It was only a short drive to Lake Powhatan from the restaurant. Jackson's criminal history was limited to a 1989 trespassing conviction and some traffic infractions. Jackson was found guilty of first-degree murder, rape, and kidnapping by a jury in the state of North Carolina. On November 22, 1995, he was handed down a death sentence. After the police violated Jackson's Miranda rights during his interrogation, the Supreme Court of North Carolina vacated his convictions and sentence 3 years later, as reported by WPDE. Jackson confided in his father after being questioned by police about Karen's murder. "They accused me of carrying it out. They beat me up pretty bad." Jackson was so distraught that his father, J.D., had trouble understanding him when he said verbally, not physically. And when Jackson requested an attorney, he said he didn't need one and that the police wouldn't let him use the phone. Jackson, according to the newly elected Sheriff Bobby Medford, came in voluntarily for questioning that lasted about 45 minutes. They worked well together. Medford remarked on the cordial environment. But in 1998, the court ruled that Jackson's confession was not admissible and should not have been used against him. More importantly, Jackson's interrogators should have paid attention to his request for a lawyer during questioning in 1994. In fact, Medford was one of the guys who grilled Jackson. A new trial has been ordered by the court. Jackson pleaded guilty to second-degree murder and other charges just before his second trial began in March 2000. The state court handed down the 25 to 35-year sentence. Jackson appealed the decision, citing new Supreme Court decisions on crimes of violence, the WPDE reports. On April 20, 2022, a panel of 3 judges from the United States Court of Appeals for the Fourth Circuit ruled unanimously against Jackson's appeal. The judge ruled that he should be executed for murder. The government, he says, has not provided sufficient evidence to show that he committed a crime of violence. The opposite is true. Jackson was found guilty of federal premeditated first-degree murder, crime of violence, by a unanimous jury. As a result, we agree with the lower court's denial of Jackson's subsequent 2255 motion. Remarks by Honorable Diana Gribben-Motz, Judge. Presently, Jackson can be found locked up in a federal penitentiary in Terre Haute, Indiana. Jackson was suspected in 2 similar but unsolved murders, but he was never charged for any of them. On January 20, 1987, 17-year-old Beverly Sherman was shot in the head. At around 4 o'clock, she was seen by her friends getting into a yellow car driven by a white man in the parking lot of the Asheville Civic Center and disappearing. On April 26, 1987, police discovered her dead body near the summit of a steep hill on Vance Gap Road. Pamela Michelle Murray, 23, went missing from the Asheville Mall parking lot on Valentine's Day in 1987. Late that day, her body was discovered on a desolate stretch of River Road not far from the Asheville Recreation Park. Pamela was driven there in her own car and then shot as she tried to escape. Her murderer drove the car back to the shopping center parking lot. When he was defeated in 2006, Sheriff Medford stayed in office until Van Duncan took over. According to John Boyle of the Asheville Citizen-Times, Medford was a corrupt police officer who pressured witnesses for testimony or his own detectives to make a case, sometimes on flimsy evidence or witness accounts in murder investigations. Medford contracted COVID-19 while serving time in a federal prison and died in June of that year. From the 15-year sentence he received for corruption and extortion charges for accepting bribes from illegal video poker operators in exchange for allowing their businesses to operate, Boyle noted that he had already served 12 years. On November 25, 2010, Karen's father, James Thad Stiles, passed away as a result of cancer.